And joining us in the WION studios today is our very special panel. We have Andrew Whitehead, writer and senior journalist with me. François Gauthier, French political writer and also journalist. We have Walter Anderson, former official in the US State Department, author, academician, and authority on the RSS as well. And we have Jasper Reed, political analyst and brand expert. Welcome to all of you and good evening. Let's start with Pragya Thakur. She does not want to be in news. She said that she's going to keep this vow of silence. She is going to remain silent for the next 3 days, but that's not happening. What is the Congress government here trying to do in Madhya Pradesh?
I think it's straightforward tit for tat. The BJP has made efforts to bring down the Madhya Pradesh state government, which is Congress-controlled, but with a very, very narrow majority. And Kamal Nath, who is a fighter and a veteran fighter, has said, OK, you're trying that mischief, I'll try this mischief by reopening quite an old case against Pragya Thakur.
She was being criticized by many in her own party, François, by pulling out this case, which is 12 years back, which went on for 10 years, and the police found no evidence. Is the Congress party making a victim out of somebody who was already on the back foot?
To be very frank, I don't know. I mean, I was always a little bit clueless about this case. I have no idea whether she's guilty or not. But I do think that opening up the case again is a political move. It's rather a dirty move. But I have no idea whether she's guilty or not.
Well, that's fair to say, but whether or not she's guilty, the fact that the timing of this reopening of case is curious, wouldn't you say? And that gives Pragya Thakur a political score.
Well, it may be a bit peculiar, but I think it's not, surprising that they have done this. And she is under attack within the BJP and the RSS, by the way, as well. And I think this is a sign, going to be a sign of this new government, if it becomes a new government, of cracking down on its hard-wing right, because of which she is, a constituent part of. And I think if they go ahead, and there are some options they have, if she wins, and I'm told that she's doing quite well in her election bid, they could get tough on her if they want to. And I think in many ways they probably should, to make a point. And the RSS should also speak out against this as well, because there are other issues. There's bigger issues involved here. There's the whole cow issue is involved, and the extremists on that, and some other questions that, these are law and order issues which will not be tolerated.
And then we have Amit Shah hosting dinner for NDA allies. Most exit polls say that the NDA is coming back to power, and the BJP pretty much was the ruling party. The allies were just incidental in the previous dispensation. What do you think the BJP president is trying to do today?
Well, I think it's evident enough. He's trying to rally people around. I'm not sure whether actually the Shiv Sena sending a representative is neither here nor there, frankly. I mean, I think he's doing what he should do, and ignoring all of the chit-chat around voting protocols and getting on forming a coalition. He's doing his job.
He's also dominating the news output as well, because of having the Council of Ministers meeting and then the NDA meeting. And surely part of it is saying, however well the BJP does, and of course some of the exit polls suggest they may again be a single-party majority, there's always a place for our allies. Yeah. And it's also suggesting perhaps to some of the smaller regional parties who are wondering what they do, there's a place for you at the top table if you want to come on board.
And the Modi-Shah combo was always criticized for not being team players, that they did everything on their own, and the others were told that this is how we're doing it. Are we going to see a different leadership, a different approach?
Well, the difference is that Amit Shah is now a member of parliament. And the question is...
Expects to be a member of parliament.
Well, yeah, expected to be. Let's assume that he's running in a district which is fairly good, safe district for him. And it was so chosen for that reason. But let's assume he is. He has a different role then. He has, is he going to become a minister in the cabinet? Is he going to stay as president of the party, which was somewhat unusual if in fact that were to happen. But the two men, Modi and Amit Shah, are so close to each other. They will continue to form a kind of core of the party. And I totally agree with Andrew on what is going to happen. Is they're going to reach out. This is going to be a coalition government. They say so. as was the last one, even though the BJP had a majority. And they will take members of the supporting parties into the cabinet as well, as they did the last time. And that was going to happen again. And I think you're absolutely right. You know, one major, purpose of this is to reach out, which I'm sure they're doing already, to various regional parties and say, let's work together.
Not just allies, but potential allies as well, perhaps. Do you think there's a link between what's happening, the political scene in Delhi, and the fact that the CBI has told the Supreme Court that there isn't enough to substantiate charges of disproportionate assets against the Yadavs?
Well, yeah, but they might not need any allies if they have the majority that the polls have predicted. It's just a formal, way of reaching out to the allies. But if they have 300 on their own, they don't really need anybody, except maybe the Shiv Sena, which is ideologically the closest to the BJP, and also the most unreliable ally that they have. I mean, for sure, I know Uday Thackeray a little bit, but he doesn't have the reach of his father. He doesn't have the stature of his father. Very unreliable people, but and they're not turning up for the dinner. So these are their closest allies. But I don't think they're going to need much of a coalition in this next government. So it's just a token gesture of goodwill.
Right. What are your thoughts on what happened with the Samajwadi Party, the Yadavs and the clean chit?
Well, I find the timing of the clean chit quite remarkable, just as polling ends. Uttar Pradesh was spread across, I think, every polling day.
7 phases,
and
yes.
It's at the end of it that two of the principal figures in Uttar Pradesh politics are given this clean chit. But whether this is a prelude to discussions with the BJP, I don't think so. I think that the gap is too wide. And of course, Akhilesh is not in power in Uttar Pradesh, so there's no regional governing party which might be tempted. But I think it opens all sorts of interesting possibilities. But I really do wonder why the court couldn't have found a way of getting this into the public domain earlier. Surely somebody being cleared of a shadow and that being made public isn't breaking the model code of conduct.
Indeed. Where does this leave the Gathbandhan, and how will Mayawati take this?
Well, the interesting thing is to see how it reacts to issues which affect the ground base of the two parties. Because the BSP, is composed mainly of people either with little land and no land at all. And in UP politics, and Paul Brass writes about this, is an expert on this subject, the American political scientist. Who has the land? To a large extent, the peasantry in UP today are the Yadavs. And that's the Samajwadi Party. Now, how are those two groups going to work out that issue of land? Because the Dalits, largely landless, want land. The Yadavs obviously don't want to give it up. That's going to be a clash. In fact, I was somewhat surprised they were able to work out this coalition, because in the past, they've been at daggers drawn to each other. And are they going to be able to make up because of this political, stitching? It depends on what happens in terms of policy perspectives that come out. It's going to be difficult.
Right. And then there's an audio message by Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, who says, do not be disheartened by what is being said, and make sure that you remain strong. As Andrew and I were discussing earlier today, the only thing that she doesn't say is that we're winning. Hang in there.
Well, I think this is on a scale of a continuum of statesmen being statesmanlike. So, she's a good deal more statesmanlike than crimping about the EVMs. And actually there is. I felt this when Rahul first put the tweet out, that actually there's a basic duty of leadership to recognise the cohorts of people that have been working for you around the clock for months on end now. So I slightly take your point that she hasn't mentioned victory, but hats off to her for reaching out to her hard-working people.
After all, we haven't had any message from the party president, have we? Unless I've missed it, there's been nothing from Rahul Gandhi. So
he blamed the EVMs the moment polling ended on the 7th.
That was a tweet, but there was no message to party workers, no acknowledgement, as Jasper was saying, of all that they have done. How successful it's been, we don't know. And I must say, the Priyanka's wording, I've got part of her audio message saying, I am confident that our effort will bear fruit. Well, that's one of those vacuous phrases which means absolutely nothing, and it is certainly not saying we're going to win.
But Jasper makes an interesting point there. Do you believe that Priyanka Gandhi has run a much more positive campaign than her brother?
Yes, and I think a leader has to encourage the workers, even in the face of defeat. I think that's quite noble and quite,
Even her messaging, she's always said, let's focus on the core issues, let's debate on the core issues.
Yes, that's positive. I think that's positive. Can I say something about the Yadavs?
Yes.
We know that in India, political leaders get rich for 4 generations. So I'm very surprised that they've been cleared because, after all, it's a BJP government. Mr. Ajit Doval, is the head of all the intelligence agencies, and he's a very straightforward and honest person. So I'm very surprised that they've been cleared because there have been so many stories that, they've made money, that they have amassed so much wealth. So it's a surprising move, and I think you're right, questions arise from this clearance.
Yes, but the reason they've given is that those charges cannot be substantiated. They're not saying that this didn't happen.
I think there's a bigger issue here, and that's an effort to be conciliatory. There's a case even bigger than this, which they haven't pushed, and that's Robert Vadra and his land deals. That has not been pushed either, surprisingly, and I think they want to sort of be somewhat conciliatory to the Congress and its leadership, and its first family. This is the in-law of the first family. And there are all sorts of charges against him, but it hasn't been pushed by this government.
Is it being conciliatory, or is it keeping it for when they really need it?
They could, but the very fact that they have, in their rhetoric, been relatively silent on this issue suggests to me that they want to be a little bit conciliatory.